Hello out there. Hope you're all hydrated and a very hot welcome back to At the Movies with Andrew, the segment on Matt's Movies, Music and More, where I go to the cinema and I let you know about what I saw in there. Yes, as you could probably tell from that intro and from my perspiration, although the light above me has something to do with that, as well as my summery shirt, that yes, we are knee deep into the hot midsummer season now. And with that comes the age-old question when it comes to cinema and current movies. Yes, we have a lot of big attractive titles and names and brands and sequels and remakes and reboots. Yeah, blimey, do we have a lot of those coming out right now. But the big question is, are they enough to entice people like you and me into cinemas? Or would you rather, with the sunny weather outside, spend your time on more desirable outdoor pursuits like going to the park or going to the beach? Yeah, other desirable options instead of going to the cinema with your time. Well, yeah, hopefully that's what we're here to talk about. So, without further ado, let's get started on that. And starting off today on the subject of sequels and familiar names, we have the sequel that some of us have been waiting 5 years for, unless you count Kong Skull Island in the middle of all that. Yes, I am talking about Godzilla 2 King of the Monsters, directed this time not by Gareth Edwards but by Michael Dougherty, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, and starring names like Kyle Chandler, Vera Farmiga, Ken Watanabe, Charles Dance, and Millie Bobby Brown, aka the girl from Stranger Things. 5 years after Godzilla and Another Monster made San Francisco a great big pancake, the word is therefore out in the open now that yes, monsters and titans do exist, and the secret organization Monarch, are now in the process of locating the underground secret base locations of where all these other monsters and titans are sleeping, and a scientist is constructing a monster calming sonar wave device, all of which attract the attention of a disgraced former military general turned eco-terrorist played by Charles Dance, who kidnaps said scientist and daughter and sonar device. And so with that comes the question, will these monsters awaken and proceed to destroy the world? Will Godzilla help us in combating these monsters? Will humanity survive this terrible disaster? And more to the point, can any of us really and truly give a flying monkey's fudge? But I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. I'll say right off the bat on a positive note that they listened to complaints about the first movie, not so much that Bryan Cranston, oh wow, in the trailer he looks like a huge dramatic presence and then he gets swiftly killed off in the first act of the movie, so obviously he's not going to come back and we don't really have anyone like that to replace him. But all the complaints about how you'd see Godzilla looming in the distance and oh, he's coming towards you very slowly, oh, he's gonna attack us, and then cut immediately to a small TV screen with news footage of big monster is attacking the city. I wish you could see it, but we're not going to show you any of that. No. They have upped the ante this time around. You do get a little bit more of Godzilla. And not only that, but as the plural title Monsters implies, we've got more familiar Toho monsters making their 21st century reimagining here, like Mothra the Moth, giant butterfly. You've got Rodan the pterodactyl, and you've got Godzilla's mortal arch nemesis King Ghidorah with the snake 3 heads and the electric powers. And like Godzilla, they've got their trademark cries, their trademark powers, and their trademark moves. of a particular note, personal note, I like the touch that they did to Ghidorah, that all three heads have their own personalities. Like one's the smart one, one's the alert one, and one's the dumb one that they have to knock some sense into. So that was kind of fun. I can't be the only one who thought of Monty Python and the Holy Grail with the three-headed knight with that, you know, like, you're lucky you're not next to him. Why, you snore. Oh, I don't. That was a fun touch. But the monsters are there and they look and sound and move and attack correctly. So as fan service, it works very well indeed, and you get the monster. You get, I'd say, on about 30 or 40% more monster fights. Although they are a little bit gloomy looking. There's thunder and lightning and rain. It takes place at night all the time because that's what will look dramatic. The camera is very frantic, and the monsters themselves move with more frenzy and speed than you'd expect some monsters of their weight to be able to do so. I mean, they work in still images where it's Ghidorah framed against a volcano and fire, or when monsters are about to face each other. Great big, you know, round one fight, still image sort of thing. It's only in the movement that they start to become a bit rudimentary. But on the whole, you this time round you get 30 or 40% more monster fights with the creatures. Unfortunately, this means that 70% of the movie is focused on the humans, and by humans I do mean one-dimensional cardboard cutout ciphers with very dumb dialogue. You've got Kyle Chandler as the grizzled soldier, who even gets introduced in a cliched way. Like, they find him in a jungle, researching and with wolves, and we need you to come with us, sir. I don't work for your organization anymore. I'm not interested. Your wife and daughter have been kidnapped, sir. Where are they? Take me to them. And once he's on board, he's the hero. He's the grizzled, gruff hero who knows exactly what to do in any given situation, regardless of whether there are any military commanders or experts there. We have to go to this place. No, that's a decoy. We have to go to Antarctica. That's where the bad guys are. Or maybe we should sit this one out, this fight. No, we have to help Godzilla. We have to go in there and risk our lives. All right, anything you say. You've got Ken Watanabe as the wise Japanese scientist. You've got the comic relief scientist who's clearly emulating or pretending to be Rick from Rick and Morty. That's clearly what they were going for there, him standing around with his bottle going, oh, we've gone to Atlantis. I told you there were hollow tunnels connecting the Earth's core. And one or two cringeworthy lines that he gets with when someone else says, oh my God, Zilla. That's the level we're going for, people. And the girl from Stranger Things, yes, I am just going to keep calling her that, who has only two modes to her, plucky or scared, which, to be fair, is all the script gave her. But when the final monster fight takes place in Boston and it's a dangerous area and it's going to blow up, take a wild blooming guess where Eleven from Stranger Things has run off to. Yeah, stuff like that. With rather cliched and dialogue, like standing around monitors, expositing technobabble, or saying things like "that's not possible," or "a tropical storm is heading towards Washington." That's not a tropical storm. That's what we're going with here. This is a very, at the end of the day, this is a very rudimentary, noisy blockbuster with mindless destruction, with any real weight or feeling, which we see all the time now. I mean, this is supposed to be an apocalyptic event, and to us, the audience, it feels like a Tuesday. In that respect, I do take back what I said about in the past about Godzilla 2014. Well, okay, some of the stuff about Godzilla 2014. At least Gareth Edwards knew how to give dramatic scope and weight and power to Godzilla. And Kong Skull Island, even, at least that had the charm, the novelty of being a 70s period piece with characters that with actual witty dialogue, or at least we're going on a journey of some kind. And I do feel bad for saying this, because critics have already come out with stuff like this, and audiences have hit back saying, what were you were expecting Shakespeare, it's giant monsters fighting, what more do you want? And to that I say, all right, yes, the monster fights, the detail and the dedication to making these monster fights feel authentic to the fans, that works on that level at least. But at the end of the day, I have to say, you want monsters fighting? Well, good, because that's all you're getting from this movie. Otherwise, it's it's full of sound and fury and noise signifying very little. And at the end of the day, most audiences are going to come out and forget it. And so, after this, next year, in this cinematic universe, we've got Godzilla versus King Kong, Dawn of Justice, the greatest gladiator match in the history of the world, Ape versus Lizard, Day versus Night, God of Zilla versus King of Kong. All right, I'll stop now, but I'm sure I'll have more to say when we get around to it. Next up, we have Aladdin, Disney's latest live-action remake of a beloved Disney animated classic. Yes, get used to me saying that, because we're going to get a lot more if future release schedules are anything to come by. Lion King, Mulan, Lady and the Tramp on Disney's upcoming streaming service. Directed by Guy Ritchie and starring Mena Massoud, Will Smith and Naomi Scott, amongst others. I'm sure, hopefully you know the story behind all this. Aladdin is a street rat in Agrabah. He's in love with the Princess Jasmine, but she's a princess and she's due to marry a prince. So when he comes across treacherous Vizier Jafar, gets the lamp, gets a genie, he wants to become a prince in order to impress Jasmine. All the while, Jafar wants the lamp. Aladdin has to pretend that he is trying very hard to conceal the fact that he's just a humble thief. And Princess Jasmine, is the actress playing her, is hiding the fact that she used to play the Pink Power Ranger. So, full disclosure, if I'm being a snob, I would say that Fantasia is perhaps my favourite Disney movie of all time. But if I'm being honest with myself, Aladdin was my childhood Disney movie. When it came out in 1992, I was 9. I got the video, endlessly sang Friend Like Me, sang Whole New World like everybody else then and everybody else now. I had the Sega Mega Drive tie-in game. So of all the potential remakes and redos of Disney films, this is one I had the most investment in, of you better not screw this up, Disney. And that's kind of, right off the bat, I will say, if you're attached to the 1992 original, try and put that aside if you can going into this, or otherwise it will cloud your judgment on this movie going forward. But let's try and be fair and on balanced here. But I will say, Guy Ritchie is the director attached to this, and apart from one or two moments of freeze frame or walking through the alleyway in slow motion, you will know when you get to them, this is very much a movie that's designed by studio committee and with a name plonked on it, because anybody could have done this movie, really. and most of the time, um, the movie will succeed or resonate with audiences because the original did most of the work already. But individually on characters and actors, Mena Massoud as Aladdin. Yes, he is charming. He works. He's got a great big beaming smile that will work with the family and the kids. He is a little flat and one note if left on his relative lonesome, not counting his CG monkey friend Abu, or singing riff raff street rat. I don't buy that. But he's done. He needs somebody to bounce off of, really, and in that respect, he does sell his friendship with the genie, and especially his romance with Princess Jasmine. You do root for him in that regard. Will Smith, let's just come out and say it, he had an impossible Robin Williams shaped mountain to climb here. He was never going to top or equal the iconic performance, manic, frantic, improvised performance that Robin Williams gave in the original animation. And it doesn't help, you may have seen this in the trailer, is rather iffy looking blue CG genie body, especially when you can imperceptibly tell that his face isn't quite matching with his floating body. But he does work really well when he's in human form. And the script and the direction allows him to just be Will Smith. He's doing the Will Smith here. Yes, he does have one or two of the frantic jokes and quips here, but he is in this version, he is allowed to have his own romance subplot with the princess's handmaiden, and generally acts more of as a wise mentor role to Aladdin in his courtship, and his be careful about being greedy with don't be greedy with your wishes. He does sell that. With regards to Jafar, I have mixed feelings. Again, with the trailer, you might have seen him being very effete and one note in his voice, like, I can make you rich, Aladdin. Go to the Cave of Wonders. Bring me the lamp. Yeah, it does not shake off that tone in the movie. He does have a serious intent in his machinations, though, and at least you could claim, at least it's it's not the original Jafar, but at least it was a different take, a different interpretation. Aside from those performances, where this movie succeeds is in its set design, its production values, the spectacular Bollywood costumes, colourful costumes and set design. One or two times you can sort of tell it's a set, but especially with wide establishing shots, Agrabah feels like an actual palace, an actual city. So congratulations on that spin on it. But regarding other changes, yes, all credit to Princess Jasmine for strengthening her character, which she kind of had to do in the modern times, I get. That make her more of a active, proactive, strong role, make her desire for being a strong ruler more prominent in this version. But the kind of flip side of that is that she has a new song in this, which is very in-your-face, pro-feminist, which I do not have a problem with. I'll say that. The message behind this new song I have a problem with, but in comparison to the older established songs, it does stand out like a sore thumb. It is trying very hard to be the new Let It Go, and the film literally freezes so she can deliver this big I will not remain speechless song. You couldn't have found another point in the movie where you could have naturally done this. In a musical, placement of songs is everything. I would have taken Proud of Your Boy from the stage version over this, quite frankly. also the climax, without spoiling it, really highlights the triumphs and the strengths of animation versus of what you can do realistically, physically with live action. It's a chase, and at the end of the chase, they end up in the exact same point that they were before the chase started, which makes me feel you just needed to kill 5 minutes, didn't you? But for all that, this is an okay interpret. It's watchable. The leads are trying, and the money is there on the screen. Yes, it's largely the same beat for beat interpretation of the animated version, but there are one or two twists, character twists, and beats that make it worthwhile. I feel it's equal to the stage version, and I thought the stage version was okay. I'd say it's a low watch it, but still a watch it. So see you next time for The Lion King. Let's see how that turns out. For our next movie, there is some debate on the internet and in critical circles about how the superhero movie genre recovered after the nuclear disaster of Batman and Robin. Some people are arguing that Wesley Snipes' Blade was actually not all that bad and actually did a lot to make comic books movies seem serious. A lot of people point to Christopher Nolan resurrecting Batman with his Dark Knight trilogy, but I think a lot of people point to 2000's X-Men movie directed by Bryan Singer, which nobody expected to work. Mutants with funny powers and spandex and fighting each other with weird power. Or how could you translate the drama and the weight of the comics to the screen? And yet it managed it very well. Patrick Stewart was born to play Charles Xavier, Ian McKellen as Magneto, and they took the material seriously and with respect. And from there spanned a near 20-year franchise full of ups and downs and hits and misses and course corrections, particularly with the prequel reboot now starring James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender. But now here we are. We have to come to the end of the road with this X-Men film franchise because Mickey Mouse now owns Fox Studios. So we do apparently have New Mutants coming up next year, but there's no use asking anyone when the reshoots on that are supposed to happen, so it's still a bit flimsy. But at least with the main X-Men cast, this is the swan song. This is the end. This is X-Men Dark Phoenix. And this is a storyline that has been botched in films before with X-Men 3, The Last Stand in 2006. The film that famously brought us Vinnie Jones saying, "I'm the Juggernaut bitch." So here's a new attempt with a new cast to do the Dark Phoenix storyline beloved in comics. And who did they give it to? Simon Kinberg, who co-wrote X-Men 3, The Last Stand, and ghost-directed Fanfare. Brave move, guys. Brave move. Going with the decade time jump of these prequel movies, the year is 1992. Not that you'd ever notice that at all throughout this whole bloomin' movie. The X-Men go into space and rescue astronauts from a purple space cloud thing, through which Jean Grey absorbs its powers and becomes the Phoenix. Except she already was the Phoenix at the end of the last movie, X-Men Apocalypse. She became the Phoenix then. She burned Apocalypse. That was the only way that they could stop this unstoppable villain. I only watched that movie once, and even I remember that, and you're not going to comment on this? All right. From here, her powers grow more powerful and unstable, and especially when a dark secret from her past is unveiled, she goes berserk and starts manifesting her powers. She uses them. She runs off into an alleyway and goes mopey and crying. The X-Men from the aftermath of this are moping and crying. When Magneto finds out about this, he's moping and crying. When Jean is in a bar moping and crying, a mysterious character played by Jessica Chastain and basically quickly becomes the Emperor Palpatine to Jean's Anakin Skywalker. They even look alike. Look, let the hate flow through you. The Phoenix forces a path to powers many consider unnatural. Is it possible to use this power, learn this power? Not from an X-Man. And just to spoil it right off the bat, because Jessica Chastain's character was shrouded in mystery and rewrites and reshoots, was she going to be Lilandra of the Shi'ar Empire? Was she going to be Cassandra Nova? And I did spend a great deal of this movie looking at her and thinking, I wish you were playing Charles Xavier's crazy, evil twin sister, because that would have given you something to elevate you beyond this monotone performance you're delivering. But no, just to spoil it, because screw this movie, she is Vuk of the Dubari. Yeah, that was totally worth waiting for, wasn't it? From a race that normally look like walking, talking asparagus sticks, but they are aliens that can shape change into human form. Oh yeah, by the way, aliens now exist in this X-Men film series. You would think that this would be treated like a significant, momentous event that alien life forms exist, but nope. Nobody ever seems to acknowledge or comment on this, and because they shape change, they can shape change into extras in trench coats and save us a lot of money. Yeah, I mean, watching this movie, because this has been going on for so long, and now we don't even have the pleasure or novelty of James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender being new, intriguing takes on these characters, or even a Hugh Jackman cameo anymore. This does rather highlight what the X-Men movies have become, or what they failed to become and adapt to in the light of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and developments like that in the past. This feels like a movie that should have been made 10 years ago with the scope and the vision and the budget that it has. Case in point, when Magneto has to hold back a crashing helicopter, he's just standing there on the ground like this, making a constipated face. It's like, really, guys, that's the best you got? And yeah, once again, Magneto is in hiding. Once again, he's brought out of the shadows. Once again, he is taking the moral counterpoint to Charles Xavier and his perspective. Right down to him making a speech about, you're always sorry, Charles, and there's always a big speech, but nobody cares anymore. And I was like, you just summed everything up. You just summed up the movie right there. You just summed up the movies, the franchise right there. How do you do that? Yeah, and once again, Jennifer Lawrence, you can tell she's wanted to get out of this franchise for like 2 movies. She's not comfortable with the blue body makeup paint, and she does not want to be there anymore. She's going to read off a script, and she's going to be tepid and listless. They're just kids, Charles. You're putting us more and more in danger every day. So that when a certain scene happens, cheers rather than tears are provoked. And poor James McAvoy, Michael Fassbender, watching this movie, I felt it's such a terrible shame that we're never going to see these characters, these performers ever again. Especially if they should have gone out on a stronger note than this. And the script doesn't do them, or especially Charles Xavier, any justice. In this, he comes across as an inept, ineffectual moron. He does something to Jean Grey as an 8-year-old child, which is the spark that clashes all this. He mind wipes a traumatic event, and it does boil down to, you really could not have done this any other way. You're a professor, you're a head, you're a teacher, you're head of a school for children. It is your job. You're supposed to be qualified to deal with emotional stuff like this, and you took the easy way out, and you and everyone around you is suffering for this, and it gets out of it in the most weak, ineffectual, justifying speech in the climax, which you can tell was the product of reshoots, because it's inside a boxed environment. It's inside a train, so it was cheap to make, and we could get away with rudimentary dialogue like, "I don't want to fight you." I get that a lot. Can I say anything about this that's positive? Well, Sophie Turner in the lead as Dark Phoenix. She is trying to be conflicted and emotional and weepy. The one thing I do remember from this movie coming out was that the score, the electronic, thumping, dark and energetic musical score, which I then found out later was done by Hans Zimmer, because every dark and brooding superhero movie has to be scored by Hans Zimmer. I mean, some will say that it's an average, below average movie. The effects are average, the script is rudimentary. Everyone looks like they don't care anymore, or they know they're going to be fired or dismissed after this movie, so why even try? But it's the fact that this is the end, the climax to a 20-year-old film franchise that lots of people have been invested in, that make me push this to a rating that the Phoenix herself would be proud of. And we should all burn it. So yeah, Simon Kinberg has messed up the Dark Phoenix storyline not once but twice. Twice! How do you do that? The X-Men animated 90s cartoon remains the best visual media representation of this beloved comic storyline. I loved the cartoon as a child. I liked the comic storyline as a child. So much so that as a excitable teenager, I did a convoluted, messy fanfic version of the Dark Phoenix storyline, starring me and my school friends. And being a teenager who didn't know anything about disciplined story writing or sense, I put a lot of everything I liked in there. I put Power Rangers in there. I put Doctor Who in there. I was the Doctor character. I regenerated at one point. But until somebody like the Marvel Cinematic Universe comes along to resurrect these characters and hopefully address this storyline in a bigger way, I'll stick with the cringe-inducing, self-indulgent fan fiction version of Dark Phoenix in my head. Thank you very much. And finally, very quickly, we have Brightburn, directed by David Yarofesky, but it was written by Brian and Mark Gunn and produced by James Gunn, so everybody's going to associate from the visionary director behind Guardians of the Galaxy, as the tagline would have it, attached to this superhero horror movie. Starring Elizabeth Banks, Rita Repulsa from the Power Rangers movie, David Denham, the Red Ranger's dad from the Power Rangers movie, and Jackson A. Dunn. The premise, one night a meteor from outer space crashes into a small village in town in Kansas, particularly in the backyard of a couple of Kansas adults, farmers. who have long wanted a child of their own, and they find this meteor and find an infant baby, alien baby inside that looks human, and they always wanted a child, so we'll adopt him as our own, even though as the years pass this little boy starts exhibiting strange super strength and superpowers. No, I am not reading the premise for Superman or Man of Steel by mistake. This is the actual movie. It's from here we take a twist into Superman used or Clark Kent used his powers for good. But what if Brandon Breyer decided that he was stronger than everybody else, so he could do what he wanted to everybody else, including murder them horribly and bloodily? And what are we going to do about it? What are the parents going to do? Can they do anything about it? Yeah, this is, and I'm amazed they got away with this, that this is very much a dark take. This is what I think some comics have done in the past. Take Elseworlds comics have taken the idea of Superman is good and pure and wonderful, but what if somebody with powers like that? What if Superman was evil? And it does play around with this copyright skirting premise. At one point, you see one of the helpless school children victims typing an essay about the death of truth, justice, and the American way. So yeah, it's a subtle commentary there, but it plays around with, is this puberty? Is the conflict of the boy who was once pure and innocent and now he's not such a child anymore? And what would someone with such power like that? Surely you would snap, you would break, you would lash out against the world at one point, and how would that manifest to those around you? And it does take this premise and play with it for about the first third of the movie, after which it does really boil down to horror movie cliche soup. Jackson A. Dunn as the boy, I was hoping for a little more depth, an inciting incident, conflict between wanting to do these things and giving into his darker impulses. But after a certain incident or a certain point in this movie, he becomes Damien from The Omen. He is just a creepy child. He's a creepy, sinister looking, monosyllabic problem child who's just hit puberty. Like, we've got terrible news, Brandon, your uncle has mysteriously died and we don't know how he got killed. Okay, it's that kind of performance, but at least it's a effective creepy monosyllabic. He does sell that at least, and Elizabeth Banks and David Denham as the conflicted parents at least are doing what they can with the material that they've got. Like, I will never turn against our son. He is not our son. They do sell you as these conflicted, worried individuals, even if in the process Elizabeth Banks does come across as that mother, that mother figure who's always apologizing and standing up for what clearly is a monster. Like, he's a good boy, he really is, he doesn't mean to do it, it wasn't him, I know, my baby boy, and whatever you've done, I know there is good inside of you. All evidence to the contrary, but never mind. That and the more than one or two cases of the typical horror movie scene where the lights go out in a house and either they don't think to turn on the lights again or they can't, and so they wander up and down corridors going, who's there? Is somebody messing with me? All the while there's this underlying bass walking along like that, and then you'll catch a flash in the background of creepy child is behind you, and then at the end, oh, I've turned the lights on again, everything's fine, I'll just turn around and the child is there. Jump scares. Expect a lot of that for 3/3 of this whole movie. So Brightburn, It's an intriguing premise, but nothing else really. It's a horror movie. You'll get blood, you'll get scares, you'll get a slasher killer, and when you come out at the end, you will forget it. I am really depressed right now. This is the summer of 2017 all over again when it comes to movies. Summer of 2018, I thought we had a good thing going despite the rise and threat of streaming, but back in the summer of 2017, we got cruddy remakes and unappealing, bland reboots and sequels. People complaining about this, the lack of originality in Hollywood. And Hollywood hitting back by saying, critics, can you stop going on about the lack of originality in Hollywood? And you will stop complaining when you give us more original material. This is all the summer of 2019 that the movies has to offer us at the moment. I mean, if you look, I cannot in good conscience recommend anything this month. I mean, yeah, if you look at my ratings, you will see that Aladdin came out at the top of the tree. But that is sort of like, as a live action remake of an already popular film, that's like saying, well done, Timmy, you're the one pupil who got through their piano recital without tripping over your own shoelaces. I could just say maybe watch that on a afternoon if you're not busy, and bin everything else. So yeah, what did you think of these movies? Do you disagree with me? Do you disagree with me? Did you see anything else? Did you enjoy anything else? Did you enjoy the sunshine outside? I wouldn't blame you if you did. Let's hope for let's hope for better and bigger and more enjoyable next month. But in the meantime, please like and subscribe and comment, and stay tuned to Matt's Movies, Music and More. I'm Andrew. I'm off to get a stiff drink or a lie down. I don't particularly care which. In the meantime, do take care of yourselves and of each other. Peace out.